address it off the bat is when is information coming for SaaStr annual sponsorship? When do I get my booth clicks? When are booths due? That is all coming next week. So next week, we're going to do a full bore deep dive into SaaStr annual, everything you need to know. We'll do the agenda is launching next week. We'll go through the agenda. We'll kind of go through the rough and tough schedule, the schedule for sponsors. As you guys know, if you've done this before, or maybe if you're new here as a sponsor, some of it does change a little bit from day to day, but we've got a very good agenda that is, and a lot of really great speakers that we'll be announcing next week. So that's the exciting news off the bat. Feel free to still drop any questions that you may have about annual into the chat. That'll help us build out some of the content for next week. But yeah, so without further ado, let me get my screen going here. I'm not used to my home setup again. It's kind of buggy. I'm like, how do I have this many monitors? Anyway, okay. I'm going to start with just a quick note on our SaaStr media. I know we talk about this a lot, but I know it always still somewhat surprises folks when we do talk about our media and then some of the things you can do with it. And I wanted to call it out because I know that right now we're in this transition time between Europa and annual. It's a great time to get on the podcast because I will say, all of the really great content from SaaStr Europa is now coming out on the podcast. It's now coming out on SaaStr.com. So it's such a really great time to be a sponsor of this because listens usually peak up at this time between Europa and annual and then right after annual again, because folks know that the very best content obviously gets promoted year round, but the very, very best cream of the crop, the top sessions that, the attendees let us know and vote on. They come out first. So right now I don't know if you guys have seen, we started releasing and rolling out some of the top Europa content. So UiPath is out there, Launch Darkly, Loom's coming out tomorrow, Rippling's coming out next week. These are just such great brands to be affiliated with on the SaaStr podcast upcoming. And then obviously, we're going to go through a bunch of Europa amazing content from now till annual and then after annual. All that really great content will kind of take us through the rest of the year. So it's a really great time. And just a tidbit there I wanted to share about the podcast. We do have a couple open slots for the podcast upcoming. And so that's why I mention it. Again, I think Q4 is looking a little bit more full, but we've got some availability upcoming in Q3. So something we wanted to bring up and share about because it does, honest to God, pick up in terms of views and listeners this time of year because of how the events and the content comes out. So more to come there, but just a quick note on the podcast there. Now, the other media assets, I know you guys always ask us about what is the most updated availability of sort of our media assets, because we have 3 different newsletters, the Insider is really full right now. The weekly is full for some time. I think there's one gap because somebody dropped in July. There's one more in September, and I think that's kind of it. So the weekly does fill the first because that is our largest audience size. So the weekly is great if you're thinking of, launching something post-annual or post-Europa, which is now, and you want to get out to the crowd, or you've got something new that you're doing at annual, you want to reinforce that. The weekly is a great place to do it. It's our top content of the week. So again, you kind of get that hit. It's our very best SaaStr content of the entire week. Goes out in the weekly, has our biggest distribution. So I love the weekly for that sense. Now the daily we have opened up new slots in, so that's why that one has upcoming inventory. I think for every month except August is full. But September, again, if you want to combo it with annual, good time. If you want to do something as a last minute launch for next week, there's one slot there in July left, because we open up more slots in the daily. And that was actually based on sponsor feedback from all of you guys of everyone was trying to get in the daily and we were always capacity constrained. So we opened up new slots and basically rotated how we do the daily and its distribution. So yeah, the SaaStr Daily, it's our latest breaking news of the week. Again, because we're between events, this is I would say our content goldmine of the year. A lot of really great content coming out of the pipe. A lot of really great content coming out in the run-up to annual as well. So good time to do it. And then just last thing I'll say is the Insider is distributed on LinkedIn. As you guys know, people are on LinkedIn all the time. The distribution's going wild. So if that's something you're into, Insider is a good one to consider. Cool. There's a few like success stories, which I'll just quickly touch on. I know we've covered these before. SAP, who I think is actually coming back to do more of the daily, did just to give you guys some topical ideas of what you can promote in our newsletters. They promoted one of their own virtual events in our daily newsletter. Which did quite well. Instruct has this really killer ad that's actually running currently. It's one of our top performing ads of all time already, I will say, because it's their definitive guide to product-led growth models. So this is obviously a gated ebook. This has been doing really well because it looks like a native ad. It looks like something we would write up on SaaStr.com. People have been eating up this content like a gold mine. Also, PLG, so hot right now. So yeah, this one's been doing extremely, extremely well. Even though it is one of our newest assets that's already shot up to the top. So just some flavors of ice cream there of things you could do on media. I prefer strawberry. Anyways, with that, I know we wanted to share some of the learnings we had from the most recent event, which was SaaStr Europa 2023. We just had it a couple of weeks ago in London. It was a great event. It's funny because literally the week after there was a heat wave in London, so it was really, really hot after this. So SaaStr brought the heat to Europe. So with all that being said, I'll mainly pass it to Kevin and David on their comments. I'll maybe jump in with some color commentary of how this kind of translates to annual in some places. But yeah, guys, take it away.
Awesome. I think one of the first learnings, and as we look back at a lot of the sponsors, some of the things that really stood out to us is just having a really solid and a really fun activation, right? Obviously, for a lot of folks, sparking up meaningful conversations, generating leads, getting product feedback, right? You really want to engage with the community. And so the more you can be creative, the more you can stand out. Again, a phrase I constantly use with a lot of my sponsors, like be memorable, right? Really be creative with an activation just to kind of, again, like make it fun, make it conversational. But we saw some really, really great examples of folks that had awesome activations at SaaStr Europa. Deal, they had an amazing one. This was the ice cream, I believe it was. Make was doing some cool giveaways with the spin wheel. Vertice, the golfing got a little competitive. I was even over there practicing my putts before everyone was let in, give myself a little leg up. But it was a lot of fun, and you could see like this is where there was a lot of buzz, a lot of conversations going on, and again, from just driving for that desired outcome of conversations, leads, feedback. This really, really stood out. But David, I'm sure you saw some awesome things as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's a couple good examples right here. I mean, we did have these food activations that we facilitated. And so Deal took one of those, they fully branded it. So, if those are very limited, but if you have the opportunity to jump on one of those, again, thinking ahead to annual, I think they're great. Because they're limited, they go to our top sponsors first and then down the line. But again, they're highly sought after and a real win. But then you can also kind of make your own, like for Vertice, the golf. Yeah, Kevin, I think they had to remove you from that game, right? It was getting a little, you were spending a little too much time there, man. But yeah, I mean, look, people were coming and having fun. It was a conversation starter. And that was something that they, kind of, they had. It was good. They also had a scoreboard that they had. Yeah. So it was fun. And Make, we talk a lot about spin the wheel. These guys took it to another level. This was like a highly customized wheel that was like beautiful and really well done. And their booth was jam-packed the whole time. So yeah, those were some. There was other there was boba, what do you call it? Iced tea, boba tea. There was crepes and waffles and lots of fun food. But so both, leveraging the ones that are available, but or bringing your own. Just make sure you talk to us, right? We have to get okay with the venue and things like that. But let us know sooner than later, and they're always worth doing. I love your line, Kevin. Memorable. The way to go.
Yeah, I would say same rules apply, from Europa to annual. If you're one of the sponsors on the call, I see a few of you on here who are doing both, or maybe if you just did Europa and you're thinking about doing annual, same rules apply. I think these are great examples because they're both examples of things that we can do together with you of a food activation. Those are always provided by SaaStr. We work with the venue because of all the rules and regulations around food service, et cetera. To give you guys basically a list, right? As David said, we start with the top tier sponsors and go down. Usually I would say between the Super Bowls and up, our sponsor activations at annual do sell out fairly quickly of things that people want to do. I know people have like literally hot takes of like, they saw the boba that we did at annual last year, they've already got that, or like the Vietnamese coffee's already spoken for. Like there's a few that have already like called dibs, if you will, on some of the activations. But I like this example because it doesn't have to be food related. There are a lot of really great food related options. Obviously it works. It's a little bit more turnkey because most of them can just do some sort of branding on like the cups, on the, on the service item, whatever it is. And so that makes it really easy for all parties involved to get it done. I do like these examples of things like, Vertice and Make did. Obviously Vertice, like they didn't make this cutting green, but they did their own roll up. They kind of put some thought into it of like, okay, what are we going to bring to activate? You can see how they kind of like moved around their furniture to make sure they had room for it in their booth. So I think that's a good middle ground. And then you've got folks like Make who, they've got custom branded things that either you've made for other events or you're making it for SaaStr, and then you can, store it at your office, take it to other events. I think that's also a great way to do it if you've got a little time. I'd say now's a good time to do it for annual. You've got about 90 days to do it. That's a pretty good timeline to get something turned around quickly without any rush fees. Good way to do it. And, things like this are always super eye appealing because I think when, other folks have spin to win, this one kind of stands out because you see it's branded. It literally matches our booth colors. Like it's very vibrant and it kind of draws you in. So there's obviously different flavors of how much customization you can do. You could do the super turnkey like food stuff, or you can go all the way to things like Make, or, other folks had like I think Verdane had like a completely branded like Pac-Man game that they brought from their office. Again, we pretty much did everything that people wanted to do at Europa. We pretty much can accommodate 99% of things for annual if you start early. So yeah, definitely get in touch with our team and Sponsor Success. If you're already thinking about doing this, or you're like, oh, I've got something I've got in my office, or I'm going to brand, like, how can I make sure we can get it set up? So
Amelia, there's a question from an attendee. Do you have any contact for F&B providers? And are there any restrictions for annual this year?
Yeah, so there are always restrictions for annual every year just because of how we're in the same venue, which is the San Mateo County Event Center. So you guys will be getting a list. I know you're going to get a lot of things next week. That'll be one of the things that comes out in that list is kind of the providers. A lot of them you'll see are, your rear providers. There are some newer ones as well. So yeah, anything food related, you do have to go through that list. If for some reason you've got one that's not on that list and you want to see if it can get approved, I would say go ahead and email Sponsor Success now. You can see me. I'm just ai@SaaStr.com, and we can see if we get approval, right? Like, again, no promises. We don't really care if you do a food activation that's not on our list. It's just a matter of if we can get it approved, which we can try and help you do. And if they say yes, great. I would say things they usually like say no to are things that are like alcohol related because they have a strict like liquor license. So that's a hard no at annual. I know we actually were able to accommodate that for Europa. But for annual, that is a hard no. America's rules different. Yeah, basically anything that's not liquor within bounds, we can pretty much try and accommodate. So just let us know. Yeah.
Cool. Keep asking questions. We'll answer them here, but I'll kick off the next one. One of the things that we've seen now at least at the past 3 or 4 SaaStr events that's been really successful are after parties. And these are a couple examples. I went to the Verdane one. They did rooftop cocktails at this great place in London. And it was really nice. It was a really nice venue. They had a really big turnout, which was great. And then we see this often. Sponsors will often partner with each other. So Paddle and Topline got together to have a boat party, which was after, I think, the first day of Europa. So that was great. And just the little post above, the guide to some of the ancillary unofficial side events. What we do for our partners is we will promote this for you. We'll promote it to the SaaStr attendees of the event. And then you can see, like, a good example on the Verdane was there's the RSVP. You can still cap the number of people because obviously you probably can't host all 10,000 of our guests at an annual after party. But these things are great. I love seeing sponsors come together, makes it quite cost effective and a great way to keep building those relationships. Kevin, which ones did you go to?
I went to Exclaimer's after party, and it was It was a ton of fun, but also too, like, it was really cool because I bumped into a lot of other folks in our industry that I know. And, it was actually like, it was cool. Like, we were making tons of connections. I knew some people that are looking to hire and kind of making intros. Like, so it's really cool. Like, there is a really massive networking opportunity at these after parties. I think kind of similar, but another twist to this too, is I also saw a lot of our sponsors doing like smaller, like more intimate customer dinners, right? And not necessarily a big blown out party, but something a little bit smaller, a bit more intimate, bring your customers together, couple in some of your key prospects, right? But it's just a really great opportunity to continue the conversation. Again, it's a little bit more on the experiential side, which I think a lot of marketers are looking for and really love. So yeah, anything you can do that just continues the conversation after the event. These are all really, really good examples here.
Cool. Amelia, did you make it to any?
I did not make it to any, because I was busy running around with like 2 different radios at Europa. But I will say, yeah, these are really great examples. We usually do write them up for annual or, Europa next year, if you're thinking that far ahead. Yeah, these are always great. I would say for annual, we're a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday mix. So I would say doing it on that first day, which is the Wednesday, is probably a good place to anchor, because Thursday, which is day 2, is usually when you have the big party. A lot of people do stay for the big party, so it's kind of hard to compete head to head with that. Like, you might as well just sponsor the big party versus have your own thing that night if you're thinking about doing something day 2, because we've gotten that feedback in the past. So yeah, day 1, which is actually September 6th, is safer for things, offsite, onsite, and annual. And I like the point about, it doesn't always have to be big. I think we could do a whole separate webinar on how to plan your own customer dinners and events. And they don't always have to be dinner, right? Like, we saw folks in Europa also do, like, there was a run that they did in the morning. I think Paddle also did like a different breakfast for some of just their customers and like their podcast. Like, it doesn't have to always be food related. I think we gravitate towards that because it's a little bit more turnkey, just as like marketers and staffs in general. But yeah, it doesn't always have to be food related. So bear that in mind as well for any after parties, side events, if you will, for SaaStr Annual. There's a question here of what time will annual end on Friday? People usually want to get home for the weekends. Yeah, great question. So we've definitely factored that in. I would say most of our hard hitting like content, we're stacking like Friday morning, but not too early, because again, it's like the day after the big party. So we have noticed attendees usually like to get a late start on the 3rd day. But yeah, I think the onus and idea here is that on Friday, we'll kind of do like a beer garden in the afternoon, kind of do some like final AMAs and workshops, because we do have such a big international audience too. We're very aware of the fact that like some folks will probably head out in the afternoon of Friday. But yeah, that's kind of the, like, we'll probably start to like informally wind down around 3. We usually go till about 6 o'clock on Fridays. But again, all the locals I'm sure are going to stay and party, because then it's Friday and you don't have work the next day.
There's another question about, go ahead, about agenda for the event. And Amelia, I think you mentioned next week, right?
Yeah, it's coming Monday. Yeah.
Nice. Monday.
You might see, you might see it a little more sooner on the weekend, because we always like put it on the website a little more for like the formal launch. Hi, Pam. But yeah, Monday's the formal launch.
Awesome. I think this is definitely a really, really, really important one, especially too with everyone being a lot more distributed, remote. You're getting FaceTime with a lot of your key customers and your key prospects really helps accelerate the relationships, accelerates your pipeline. So use this as an opportunity to get FaceTime with these folks. Invite your key customers and invite your key prospects, your partners. We've even seen folks who are interviewing senior level candidates that they invite the candidates to come. So anyone who is really important for you to get FaceTime with, it's just a huge opportunity to to get more and more time with them. Again, build a relationship, but use this as an opportunity, use it as a good excuse. Get your customers and prospects there. Again, I think the folks that really take advantage of this look back at it, and it even too from like an ROI on your sponsorship perspective, really helps prove out that ROI as well.
I can't say this enough too. For both Europa and annual, we always help people invite their customers and prospects, whether it's like discounted passes, if you're a top tier sponsor, sometimes even comped passes. I don't see people take advantage of this enough. You'd be surprised when the amount of times I've been like, yeah, we've offered some of the diamonds like 10 free passes and some of them invited 0, like, different priorities for different people. But yeah, I can't stress this enough. I think the Bay Area is not as dead as maybe Twitter makes it out to be. Annual's a really good time to get together with your customers and prospects. And to the point, we just touched on side events. Like, you don't always have to do a side event. Like, if you invite them to annual, you have an activation, you have some sort of thing going on. You meet them there, you get face them. I think that's what really matters, is putting in the effort. I know we've had a lot of recent articles on SaaStr.com about customer success and relationships and how face-to-face really matters. Like, meeting them there or offering a meeting them there is, I think, never a bad idea to do. Even if they're, what's the worst they could say? Oh, I'm actually not going to SaaStr. And if you're a sponsor, you could say, hey, if you're in California or if you're local, we can help get you a ticket. Would you come meet us? Or, you could take it from there. We'll come to you. That kind of thing. I think it's always appreciated. I don't think it's never like a net negative to be like, hey, are you coming to SaaStr? Can we get some FaceTime, just face-to-face to meet up, since a lot of people are distributed now. So can't stress that enough, that most people don't take advantage of.
One other last one on that. I think the sponsors who do this really well, what I've seen is, of course, like a lot of the folks that we're talking to who are planning the events and doing the strategy, it's a lot of the marketers. And I think the sponsors who do this well are the ones that, get this in front of their sales teams really early, get this in front of customer success teams early, like really work with those client facing, functions in the organization to say, like, if you had a pick list of your top 5 dream prospects to be there, like, who would they be? Right. But I think if you can coordinate and strategize with those client facing teams, that's how you can really activate this. So more of a tip internally on how to bring this to life.
Yeah, that's a good point. You might have to, Kevin, sorry, you might have to push your team a little bit to do it, right? Like, they may not get it off the bat. You might have to kick them in the butt just a bit to get them to do it, but I always think it's worth it.
Yeah, and one of my sponsors actually said they for last year they did this, and they basically, for the sales team that was going to go to annual, it was those that had clients and prospects there that they invited. So like, you can use as a little incentive, gamify it, but definitely connect with those teams.
It's well put. I think we've seen that work. That's great. I'll just jump in here. A couple things that we saw, like people leveraging their experience, both really post-event, right? Something I encourage everyone to take a look at. Make produced this really awesome video about their experience at SaaStr Europa in London the week before last. Go check it out on LinkedIn. I know SaaStr shared it as well, I think on Twitter and LinkedIn. So that was really awesome. It got a ton of likes and follows and feedback. So yeah, that was a really cool thing. And I think they'll be leveraging that for lots of different purposes to show their culture and their brand and how they come to life. So that was really great. I also love what ChartMogul did. This is a little bit both at the event and post-event, but they had this great research report on SaaS benchmarks. So, a lot of times folks are handing out, there's a lot of fun stuff, right? There was like some make your own t-shirts and hats and socks. And, I'm not allowed to bring any more junk home, but not junk, swag. But anyway, this was cool, right? I thought this was great. Maybe it's my nerdy side, but there was this great benchmarks report that they put together in advance of SaaStr. They distributed it there. They shared it post-event. And I think it was just really great insight. So leveraging data reports, our community really eats that up. And of course, post-event, they're continuing to promote it. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, and the ChartMogul one, I think, as Bianca points out, like Jason had mentioned it as one of the reports that he references, like a data point that he references, like his opener, along with other Bessemer or other ones as well. But yeah, I think that was cool because it kind of tied into the opening of what he said, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, we've got this benchmark report already." Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people I talked to that post Europa who weren't there but heard about it, and there was tons of FOMO, and so definitely lean into that, capitalize on that. I think Hook in particular, and this was even leading up to the event, but I think from before the event, during the event, and even after, I think it was about 15 different pieces of content and LinkedIn posts that they put together. And I know for that, like it just created a really strong, awesome buzz around them. And again, it got more meetings, more conversations on site. It's another great touch point as you're doing lead follow-up after the event. So like the more you can kind of leverage this as an opportunity to create really cool content, even if it's just like short form videos and pictures, like it is really, really cool and incredibly beneficial. So definitely lean into this to create content and share your learnings.
Yeah, I'd say SaaStr Europa was the first of, like, not maybe the first event, but the most I saw people TikToking at a like I do these things that I call, like, I do a round of, as the production team knows, or SaaStr team knows, I'll literally do loops around the event and just make sure things are going smooth. I do this often, like at least once an hour, if not more. And so on a lot of my loops, I'd be like, these people are literally TikToking more than I've ever seen before. And just an internal tip too, like if you have bandwidth, if you have budget to send somebody on your marketing team to just focus on creating content, I do think it helps. I think it is sometimes hard, to split the difference of like, okay, we're just going to ask our team that we're sending to also create content. There is a lot going on at SaaStr, so sometimes it can be hard to focus in and do that. So we did see a few sponsors who, set their content marketing manager, et cetera, or social media person to do some of this content so that they could focus on it, because there is always a lot going on just in the content world outside of what's going on at the booth. Okay, final tip here.
So yeah, the ancillary opportunities, I think, is something. I think we already touched on media, but the ancillaries are something that we offer that are really cool. A great way to kind of extend your presence, make your brand. Look, I'm always a big fan of the water bottles. We always have really nice, high quality water bottles that we co-brand with a partner. And everyone takes them home and they last a long time. So they tend to show up for years to come. So those are great. That one happens to still be available for annual if someone's interested in that. It also makes a great giveaway. You can give it your booth. So you kind of kill two birds with one stone. And I thought something in London that was really amazing was the pub. Kevin, I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, the pub was amazing. It was, again, I just think a really cool experience, a really cool place. I mean, we hosted happy hours. We were giving out drinks. There was food. Like there was constantly people in the pub. And so just in terms of, again, a really cool experience, but something where you're going to get tons of exposure, extend your footprint at the event. These are all huge, but I think the ancillaries are great because it does give wider awareness and presence that you're at the event, and it's going to drive more traffic to your booth and spark up more conversations. And again, depending on what the goals may be, like we've got a couple different options still available that can definitely help you, hit that desired outcome. So a lot of cool opportunities. We're probably going to see things fly in the next couple of weeks. So if you're thinking about these, whether it's the media or ancillaries, definitely get in touch with us sooner rather than later. But even too, like the media, where there's lots of conversations happening because, before the event, during the event, and after, like just an additional touch point to the wider SaaStr community, definitely helps drive better results and outcomes from the event itself. So all certain things we can do just to help you guys out.
Agreed. I think it does pick up the most around now. So it is like, I don't know. I was even looking at it this morning of like, I think this is the most we've gotten like inbounds in a single day already this morning. And I was like, it's 9:30 Pacific. Like it's the momentum usually, starts to pick up around now. So it's kind of a natural entry point to annual, and maybe to, for all of our sponsors on this call, start ramping up whatever you're thinking of doing as well to tie into SaaStr annual, right? Like we're doing a lot of things like this summer of SaaS kind of like marketing promo we're doing with like SaaStr.com and like the agenda going up, and then speaker promos going live, and a bunch of other fun stuff we're going to announce in the coming weeks about SaaStr annual. But yeah, I think all of that is good to start capitalizing on, thinking about. It's never too soon to start, promoting it, inviting your customers, or maybe having those internal talks now of like, okay, now would be a good week if you haven't already to sit down and game plan, before the 4th of July, what you guys want to do at SaaStr annual, whether you have a booth, if you're thinking of doing something ancillary, if you want to add something on, whether it's an activation through us, something that you bring, all that requires planning, right? Of like what your goals are and how it all ties together. So now's a good time to do it. I would say before you flip burgers or cook some hot dogs on July 4th, now's the time to do it, to get your plan in action, because that gives you plenty of time to execute before the annual in September. So any other final thoughts, guys? Because I know we wanted to keep, I know these webinars are always really long, and I feel like next week is going to be really long. So we're trying to keep this one concise.
That was a final. Next week's going to be pretty important. A lot of great information to be shared. We'll record it, but definitely encourage you to come next week to really dive deep into annual.
Yeah, I think my final thoughts is just think of us as an extension of your team. Like we're here to help, whether it's just brainstorming ideas, strategies. But again, on any of the planning, of course, the sooner we start planning, the sooner we, the more time we have, the last thing we want to be doing is trying to rush anything. So we'll be in contact soon, of course, with a lot more details, and next week will be great. But even if you want to get started earlier, get conversations going, definitely reach out to us.
Awesome. All right. We'll give it a final second for questions here. If you guys have anything in the Q&A, again, you can feel free to email any of us. I know you all have our emails of things we want to see specifically either next week or in the coming webinars. Thanks everyone for coming back. I know we say these are every Wednesday. We had a small break for Europa, but we'll be back every Thursday. Every Thursday from now through annual. So exciting updates to come, and we will see you all next week.